Awesome. Now I've seen something, and I think you guys kind of brought something a little different because uh correct me if I'm wrong, you guys don't kind of do like traditional, like the traditional way of doing things, right? Like Eric, I have seen you guys do blogging, right? Like blogging isn't like something that's as common as it once was, right? Where it was like many years ago. But
Right.
you guys have started putting out blogs, and you use Audio Mac, right, before getting onto
Yeah.
YouTube or any of the bigger platforms. Was there any particular reason why you went in that direction, or you guys chose to go in that direction?
W- So for the blogging part of it, I mean, that's just kind of my background. Like before I did all this, I did a lot of writing, right? Like I've written for some different online publications. I worked as a copy editor for a local company here.
Nice.
So that's just kind of my background, man. I mean, even now, like, I teach English, you
Right.
know. Um, so writing was where I was comfortable. Like the podcast and stuff, like, man, I was mad nervous like when we first started that. Because it's like, man, I don't know. Like with writing, I can take my time, and if I mess up, I can go back and fix it. You know?
Mm.
Hmm.
But so that's where the blogging side comes. I think, as far as like some, trying out some of these different avenues, some of these different platforms like an Audio Mac.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's just because I think part of that is we know that there's people on these platforms, and Zero can speak to this as well because I think this is some conversations that we've had. One, we know that there's people out there that we could have a chance to impact. That
Mm.
if Christian creatives are not being represented on a certain platform, uh, we need to get the gospel. We need to get the word on there,
To them.
right?
Nice.
Um, but also with that, I mean, if you try out and you're willing to test out some unconventional platforms, you don't have as much competition either, so it's easier to
Hmm.
stand out. I mean,
Right.
we've used Anchor. Well, it's not called Anchor anymore, but that's our hosting for our podcast, right?
Right.
And that, you guys use it, I know. That puts you out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the big ones, right?
Hmm.
What's crazy about it is when we leaned heavy into the Audio Mac side of stuff, which was, I want to say we're coming up on 2 years of really using it. Dude, we've had as much streams on Audio Mac in about 2 years as we've had for over almost 5 years, as a whole, on other
Wow.
platforms. And I
Wow.
think it's because, the Christian content, there's just not a lot of it. It's not oversaturated. So if people are specifically looking for something Christian, it's more likely they're gonna come across our stuff,
Right.
right?
Good
Right.
stuff. Good
So
stuff.
we'll try it, because at the end of the day, if something doesn't work,
Then
then we move on,
Zero's gonna have to do TikToks and KD and just
right?
do
Yeah,
Because
dance.
I'm not doing it. I'm
I will never be on TikTok.
right. I mean, but Zero, am I pretty
Yeah,
accurate with
because
the conversations we've had on some of this?
yeah, I like to take a divergent approach whenever possible because if you have 90 people all in the same room, all doing the same thing, and then you got 10 people in another room, you can talk to those other 10 people and still have a good conversation. It's less competitive, but also I feel like there gets to be this thing where like I'm having a hard time articulating this. Like people learn how to game the system early on, and then the other people jump on. So like Spotify is really gamed. Um, a lot of these bigger pools of like music and social media and stuff. There's tricks to it early on, and when you're on there longer, you learn these tricks. But if you could take some of those legitimate things to like an audio Mac that's blowing up in Africa, for some reason, a lot of our people over here in America, they're not thinking about communicating and reaching Christians in Africa. But Christianity is exploding in Africa. And so that's a target audience. Brazil, that's a target audience if they speak English. The South American countries where Christianity is rapidly expanding, if you're interested and sincere about spreading the gospel, about representing the gospel in public, then finding those Christian markets should be a part of your priority. And I think that's why we hear about a thing, we'll try it out, we'll see if it's okay, if there's something there for us. Sometimes it's garbage, sometimes it's not.
Dope. Yeah, and I was intrigued by that because I know we talk in the Pod Life chat room, right? For you guys that don't know, that's a pretty big, not a big, but a Telegram chat with a bunch of different Christian content creators, right?
It's
And
huge, Switch. Come on.
it's the
Talk your
biggest.
talk, man.
It's the biggest. It's
Brag with your
humongous.
chest, man.
Huge.
Huge.
It's
And then
huge.
Eric kept talking about Audio Mac, and we're like, yeah, but what about But it was just so interesting because I think you posted some numbers as well, and not in a boastful way, but just showing like, yo, this is what our numbers are like on Audio Mac. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And there is a target demographic, and there's people there, and I love it. I love to see that, man, because that's just not traditional, right? Because the traditional way is do this, do that, do it this way, or follow other successful platforms that have done it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that don't, or a lot of the times actually, it doesn't work for everyone. It's not a one fit formula.
I think Eric even interviewed the CEO, right? If I'm not mistaken, or the president or somebody.
Yeah. We got the co-founder came on the show, Brian Zizuk, Z.
Yeah.
Super cool. And the thing about it is, like he's not a Christian, but he's very supportive, and he also sees the value in it. Like if you go and look at Audio Mac, man, over the past year, they've dove more into gospel, like intentionally, because they see there's opportunity there. So if these platforms that, because I mean, Audio Mac legitimately, came from DJ Booth, right, which was one of the big hip hop blogs, in the 2000s, and so you got Audio Mac, that's this platform that's a top 10 music platform, at this point, that's centered around mainstream hip hop, right? Not the Christian faith by any means, but if they can see value in it, man, we need to step up and be there as the creatives, that are doing Christian content. But we overlook it because people told us, well, put your music on Spotify and get your podcasts on Apple Podcasts. Like, dude, I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, it comes down to what does success look like for you? And for us, we want to make actual connections with people. We want to be able to talk to we want to be accessible for them. And we can do that with something like Audio Mac much easier than some of these other platforms. Not saying that there's no value there, but for us personally, there's better opportunity on some of these other options.
Right. And it aligns with your vision. And shout out to Audio Mac for sponsoring this segment, by the way, too.
Dude, they never sponsored our stuff.
Yo,